Ladies and gentlemen, comparison time. Though I have to tell you, it will be a bit different than usual. I'm talking about portrait photos taken with one of the kings of edge detection, the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, and our own king of pretty much a lot of things we do in our videos, the Panasonic Lumix DC-S1, equipped with a Sigma 35mm 1.4 lens. Not only do I think this is going to be quite exciting because the way a fully equipped professional camera works is way more complicated than how a mobile phone camera operates, but at the same time, you'll get a sneak peek into the results of a professional photographer operating this beast of a device. If this sounds interesting to you, it would be really cool if you hit that subscribe button and like this video before we get started. Let the facts speak. So, as most of you know and remember how portrait photos we take with mobile phones look, I want you to take your time and delve deep into the details. Just a question though, take a pause and check which of these photos were taken by which device. I have faith that our subscribers have watched enough videos of us to know which one of these is the Galaxy for sure. Write a comment on your thoughts, but please, be honest. The photos on the left were taken with the S22 Ultra and the ones on the right with the Lumix S1. Notice how every part of my body is sharp and fully in focus on Samsung's newest flagship, while the focus is only on my face on Panasonic's camera. The further away from my face, the more the image slowly shifts out of focus. Our photographer, Sam, used only manual settings while working, with the aperture of 1.4, which is the lowest the value can go on this lens. This way, he was able to get the best results he wanted on your screen, which obviously isn't something you can do on a smartphone. Now that you have these explanations written down in your head, let's keep moving and check out all the footage. One of the things that I want to mention is that HDR has evolved a lot in mobile phone cameras over the years. In the past, if you wanted to take a photo outside with the bright sky in the frame, there was no way to ensure that both the subject and the background were visible. Now, this photo is the pinnacle of HDR photography because the software continues to be improved every passing year. I love how the background looks clean as a whistle, unlike on the Panasonic that was used with manual settings. Only issue is, there isn't a single blurred area on my body. Now, I honestly don't know which method you prefer. I've used plenty of photos taken by the S22 Ultra for my social media, but after seeing a pro camera and its natural photos in action, I have to admit that I might be switching sides. I also really like the fact that the images are soft. Fun fact, if you still haven't subscribed, you should do that now because we shared these two photos on our YouTube community page and asked which one you thought was better. Around 60% said that they liked the photo on the left, which belongs to the S22 Ultra, but quite a few people praised the photo on the right for the natural DSLR look. So I guess they'll be happy to find out that it actually is a DSLM and not a mobile phone camera. This isn't as easy to replicate on a smartphone camera because more often than not, when images are soft, this also means that the subject can turn out to be blurry. That's the reason pretty much every smartphone producer except Sony tends to add some sharpness to their processing process. While this isn't a big deal to me as I like sharp photos, I'm beginning to think that the reason for this may be that I don't have much experience with big sensors and even bigger cameras. The Lumix DC-S1 is a full-frame camera, which means it has a full-frame 24-megapixel sensor. This is what the majority of professional photographers use. The only bigger sensor is the medium format one, which ensures an extremely high resolution and has a fairly niche usage in comparison. As I mentioned at the intro, we use a Sigma 35mm 1.4 aperture lens with it. The Galaxy S22 Ultra on the other hand actually has a 108 megapixel sensor, but the size of it is even smaller than the smallest one you can see on this chart here. When I was a kid, I always wanted the phone with the most megapixels on its camera, but later on, I realized that's not really the most important thing. This information might become important to you if you're a photography enthusiast as we move on with the video. Here's one for you. Why isn't the background blurred on the S22 Ultra? That's because even if you select portrait mode, if you're not close enough to the subject, this issue can arise. Some devices even warn you that you're not close enough to the subject, and we wanted to give you an example of this right before I go back to something that's actually one of the main features that makes a smartphone camera stick out, either in a good or sometimes a bad way. One of the kings of edge detection. It's what I call the S22 Ultra in the intro. The portrait mode of some phones are just so underwhelming because they lack this level of detection and have issues with random parts of the subject being blurred. Even though Samsung did a great job with this phone, it's impossible to have zero errors across all photos as you can see here. The algorithm isn't developed enough to completely understand what's going on in the photo, so you may get the occasional detection error. These issues can also be seen in different ways if you're wearing accessories like watches or sunglasses. Look at the right side of the frame, and even the shape of it is bent in a weird way. When you take a photo like this with a pro camera, as you can see on the right, not only do you get a more natural blur effect like the one on my arm, you're also not going to get any of these so-called errors because the end result is up to you and your manual settings, rather than the software trying to separate your whole body. One last thing I want to mention is how you can take photos in JPEG and or RAW format on the Lumix, while you can only do this when you're taking regular photos with the rear camera on the Galaxy. So when you want to edit your photos on, for example, Adobe Lightroom, it's better to have them in RAW format because the images will have more information in them. Here's a small edit for you to kind of see how you can play around with this footage after you take it. Sam up the contrast on both of them a little, while also decreasing the saturation as well as softening the photo on the left, because as everyone knows, Samsung likes their photos with punchy colors. Now they kind of look pretty similar. Next photo will have the same treatment, as we've made both of them a bit brighter and decreased the saturation as well as lifting the highlights on the left. Just some interesting details that we wanted to share with you, as editing photos is actually pretty cool, no matter if you're a professional or an amateur. The Lumix also has some filters in its software that changes how the JPEG looks when you take it. You've got plenty of options, but we especially liked a few of them, starting off with Lively, which makes the photo lively. Flat is up next, and even though the name isn't that appealing, it has its uses. You're also able to manually adjust the software to get the photo looking like how you want it to, then saving those settings as a preset to have more control over your footage. There will be no winner in this contest, guys, because it wasn't really a contest to begin with. Even though I'm loving the performance of the Lumix DC S1 and how natural it makes everything look, I've gotta admit that the S22 Ultra did a really good job. Social media compresses your footage anyway, so if you're not absolutely crazy about shooting in RAW format and later editing your photos, a high quality mobile phone will most likely be enough for you, but I don't know if that's true for me because I had so much fun watching Sam use the Lumix, it actually made me want to buy a small camera of my own. Hit those like and subscribe buttons if this video was a fun experience for you, and also because we've got to hit that 200K mark now. See you in the next video.